Hey, how you doing? If this is the first time you've seen me, my name is Johnny Berber. Nice to meet you. Thanks for coming onto my YouTube channel. I really appreciate it. So if you've got a social anxiety and you're nervous of people, or you have embarrassment, you struggle to speak to people, I really sympathise with you. Thanks for coming onto my YouTube channel. I think my channel can definitely help you. So I almost feel like I'm a different person now. I'm just introducing myself if you are new to the channel. If you've been following the channel for a long time, you guys would already know me really well. Just got this, I just felt really emotional, wanted to do this video. I felt really emotional. I actually felt to cry. I was actually just resting, sitting down, and don't worry, I'm emotionally stable. I just felt so emotional. I literally thought I was going to start crying my eyes out, because I triggered emotion in myself, how I used to feel. And I'm not looking for sympathy, I'm actually looking to help you. I'm actually looking to help anyone who's going through what I was going through many years ago. I say many years ago, I was still going through this 3 years ago, but it wasn't as bad as it was, let's say, 10 years ago. So I want to share something with you, or you guys, whoever's watching this video, that was killing me for years. I mean, absolutely killing me, to the point where it frightened me so much that even I didn't want to admit it to myself. I couldn't look at it. It was too scary. It was too embarrassing, and it was too shameful. And the truth was, I was actually frightened of people. It's weird, isn't it? Well, if you've got social anxiety, you'd know what I mean. But I think for me personally, I was so ashamed that I was shy. I was so ashamed that I was afraid of people, I couldn't admit it. And the reason I got emotional just a second ago, and I wanted to make this video, because I remember how something as small as shyness and just being anxious around people affected every area of my life. It's so weird that when you're frightened of one thing, and this is my experience, it makes you frightened in every area. Now, I can't think of anything at that time that I wasn't frightened of. I'll go through some of the things. It might resonate if you. I was frightened of people attacking me physically. So I was frightened of fighting, because I got bullied a lot when I was younger. And my dad bullied me growing up, so I was afraid of my dad, and it made me afraid of people. I was afraid of people trying to control me. That always really scared me. I always had this big fear that people are going to try and control me and manipulate me in social situations, or in friendships, or in any situation where there was people, especially with meeting new people. That was always scary for me, because I was always thinking, what am I getting into? I was frightened of confident people. Confident people intimidated me, made me feel insecure. It's really weird how my mind worked at that time, because I thought confident people were bad. I know that sounds ridiculous and absurd, but my self-esteem was so low, I was so frightened of people, that anyone who seemed overpowering, it scared the hell out of me. It scared me to the point where I physically felt panic. I felt like I was going to die. That's how frightened I was. And just the feelings of low self-esteem, just feelings in my body that were telling me that I don't feel good enough. And it's just really terrifying. It's really terrifying to be frightened of people, and to feel that you've got no one to turn to. That's how I felt. I've got no one to turn to, because I didn't trust anyone. I think that's where a lot of the pain comes from. So the lack of trust with people obviously reflected the lack of trust in myself. Therefore, I had no trust in life. Responsibility terrified me. That's why for so many years I found it so difficult to move out of my parents' house. And it's funny, because I moved out many times, but I always ended up coming back. And I just realised this now, because obviously I've changed a lot, and I'm very grateful. I've made massive changes in my life, and I've overcome my social anxiety. But it's like it just clicked now. That's why I got emotional. And been from teaching other people, and because I've been teaching other people, it reminds me of where I was at, and seeing just the similarities and problems. It's like identical. And even reading about it, I just read a blog a second ago, that might have triggered something. And I feel emotional lately as well. I feel really happy, but I just felt this gust of sadness come over me, and I just really felt for other people that are going through this. And yeah, it was, I just, and I let people walk all over me because I didn't know how to defend myself socially. And on the flip side, it resulted in me being violent in my relationships, and it resulted in me being violent in many situations. And the most annoying thing is I wasn't a violent person. You're probably the same as me watching this. If you're suffering with social phobia, I was a really nice guy. But it's so much personality disorders. And obviously now I've understood psychology, it makes sense. But I think for me, it was painful not being able to open up around people and always worrying about what people were thinking and always planning what am I going to say and it's analysing everything. It was a really unhealthy place to be at mentally, and life just was difficult. Everyday life was difficult, and I used to try and explain it to people, but no one really understood. Lots of people would just say, oh, you've just got some anxiety. It's normal to have anxiety. Everyone has anxiety in their life. But I remember thinking, no, mine's really bad. Like, I'm scared all the time. I'm scared when I shouldn't be scared. I'm scared to go into the shop and buy a couple of chocolates in a magazine because I'm panicking about the interaction with the shopkeeper, which is going to last about 5 seconds or 10 seconds. I'm worried that he thinks I'm a bad person. I had this inner monologue that always said to me, you're bad, you're awful, people can see it, you're awful. That's what it would keep saying in my head. They can see it. I kept getting this echoing voice saying, people can tell, they can see you're frightened. And it used to make me feel so ashamed. It used to make me feel worthless. It made me just want to hide. And I did that for many years of my life. Now, when I say hide, I mean I hid. I stayed in my flat, and I only socialised with people that I knew for a long time. And what's more sad but exciting to share this as well, is only now I've changed and I've become secure in myself. Of course I've got insecurities like everyone has, but I'm, from where I was to where I am now, and now teaching other people, when I look back, I wasn't fully comfortable with my close friends. And that's quite hurtful. And it's not their fault, but that was because I had this I think it's mental illness, I never realised it, social anxiety. And I never understood fully why I was like that. And it was connected to another thing that really made me ashamed, and it was because of the upbringing with my dad. And that always terrified me the most, because I never wanted to betray my dad. I never wanted to talk about him behind his back. I felt that would be betraying him. That made me, it's weird to say it, but that made me feel dirty. It made me feel abandoned, and all these awful feelings came from the childhood trauma with my father, and the bullying in school, and the laughter, and the embarrassment. And it affected my speech. The way I speak now is not how I used to speak even 5 years ago. I would stutter, my tonality I had no confidence, and you could hear it in my voice. You could hear I was ashamed. And what used to embarrass me was, obviously, I knew my family knew. That's what was so hurtful. But it just became a thing where they got used to me like that, and that hurt me more because I didn't want them to accept me for this socially inept, scared, anxious, people-pleasing, psychologically damaged person. I was a human being with feelings, and I just felt so disrespected. But I know it's not their fault. It's not their fault. It was my dad's fault at the time. But it wasn't my mum's fault, my auntie's fault. They were so kind, they were so accommodating to me. But that pampering that baby, and that continued when I was 19. I remember it used to make me feel so ashamed. As soon as I'd walk in, all my family would say, "Are you okay? You're right." But it wasn't a hello in the sense of, like you say hello to someone, how you doing? It was, "Are you okay? We're concerned." And it made me feel worthless. It made me so angry. And obviously I'm not proud of it now, but I've just awoken to it. That's why I was quite aggressive towards my family, in a way where, because I was in pain, I was embarrassed. The embarrassment made me angry. I was embarrassed of my existence. Remember when I was at my nan's, and some family came over, and I was really close with my nan. I love my nan to bits. My nan's not here anymore, but she's with me in spirit. And I probably felt more comfortable with my nan than any person on the earth. But I remember even with my nan and my mum, I couldn't look him in the eye. That was so hurtful that you can't look your own mum in the eye, you can't look your dad in the eye, you can't look, you feel so worthless, you feel so dirty that you can't even tell someone that you love them and look them in the eye. It's so hurtful. And I never knew all these years it was an actual, it was a diagnosis, it was a social anxiety. I just thought, I've got that thing where I'm scared, I'm nervous around people. It was that thing. And my brain tried to rationalise it. It tried to make sense of what is this thing. And I would always put it down to, it's just with the rough boys. Because obviously I grew up in a working class background. I grew up around a lot of rough boys, but I was a rough boy, but it wasn't around the rough boys. And then I put it down to, it's just that thing I have with my dad. When my dad's in the room, I'm a bit uncomfortable. When he goes out, I'm fine. But it wasn't that. And then I thought, it's just with people I don't trust. There's some people you just can't trust in this world. Some people are really sneaky faces. That's what my mind was saying. And then there was lovely people that I really liked. But then as I said, as I really got older and really healed it and started to help other people, I realised I wasn't comfortable with anyone. I wasn't comfortable with myself. I wasn't comfortable by myself in a room. I used to panic all the time. I couldn't sit still like I am now. See how I'm speaking now? This would have been impossible for me. This would have been alien. And what I really wanted to share in this video was, you can change it. You can change it. And the biggest mistake I made, and I'm hoping this will save anyone watching this video from making that mistake, I let it go for years. I tried to ignore it. I tried to bury it. I tried to pretend it wasn't there, but you can't do that with social anxiety, because it's always there till you start working on it. And it just held me back from so many things. This is going to sound like I'm making excuses, and I'm not. I really believed in my 20s that I could have been a British champion boxer. No, that sounds like such a bold thing to say, even a European champion, because I was a good boxer. And my dad actually taught me the basics on his hands. The same person who bullied me, but he taught me how to box. And I went down, and I was always fighting in school because I always got bullied for being anxious. People took the piss out of me, and then I would lose my temper and fight. So when I went down to the boxing gym, I was really talented. I could really punch, and I absolutely loved it. It was one place where I could go, and I didn't have to speak much, and I loved that because I was embarrassed. I hated speaking. Speaking for me was the worst. It was the worst act or thing I could do. I did everything I could to avoid speaking because I was embarrassed of the own sound of my voice in everything. But boxing took me out of my body, took me out of being judged, took me out of feeling embarrassed, and I loved it. I loved the sparring, I loved hitting the bag. It made me nervous, but I enjoyed it. But I realised that, and I've never shared this before, I had my first amateur fight, and I was expected to win, really expected to win. I was expected to, you can never 100% know in boxing, but my trainer predicted I'm going to knock out a lot of the amateurs. I even trained with a professional, a friend of a friend's, and he said, oh, you really can punch, Johnny, you've got a really hard punch, you're going to knock a lot of people out with that punch and that long jab. I had long arms, very slim. But I remember walking out to the ring and I knew I lost. And I'll tell you why I lost, and I'm not making excuses, because the guy caught me with a hard left hook, he put me down, and I got up, referee stopped it. Because I couldn't deal with the stage fright. I was fighting in this hotel, and when I walked out to go to the ring, it was massive. It was this big, posh place. I think it was somewhere out in Essex or somewhere, and I think Henry Cooper was watching. I'm not sure if Frank Bruno is there. I think it's Henry Cooper. And I was more frightened of the crowd than actually fighting the guy in the ring. That was my social anxiety. I felt so judged. And I remember in the crowd there was women, pretty girls laughing at me, taking pictures. And when I got in the ring, I couldn't even hardly move. I think I threw a couple of jabs, and it was an awful performance. And I was so embarrassed. And I look back, and that was social anxiety. I might have lost anyway. I believe I wouldn't have lost. I would have beat this guy. I was a lot better than him. But obviously he dealt with the nerves better than me. But that was social anxiety. And there's so many occasions, I've got so many stories. I remember doing a job interview in Royal Mail, and my auntie's husband, my auntie's boyfriend, who was more or less my uncle after a while, he's a lovely man, he got me an interview in Royal Mail. He skipped the process because he was a postman for years there, and I was so appreciative. And when I went into the interview, I couldn't speak. I sat down, and the guy said, so you're so-and-so's nephew, heard a lot about you. I can't remember, the general questions, why do you think we should give you this job? I just panicked, I couldn't speak. And I had to say, I'm sorry, I'm really nervous. And he said, I'm going to give you the job anyway. But I wouldn't have usually give someone the job because you're so nervous, but because you're so-and-so's nephew and, we're close with him. He's worked at Royal Mail for many years, we're going to give you a chance. And I ended up working at Royal Mail for 2-3 years, but even at Royal Mail, the social anxiety was killing me. Couldn't make eye contact. Luckily, I could hide within. It was a job where I could hide, and I was hiding all my life. And I was hiding even when I was in a conversation with my mum, because I couldn't express what I really wanted to say. I couldn't even really connect with her because I couldn't really take in what she was saying, because I was unconsciously thinking she's judging me, my own mum, my own mother. And it's so upsetting to say that, but that's the truth. And I was terrified of my dad. And it took me a long time to relax. If I met someone, I'd have to spend a lot of time with them so I could calm down. His heart was beating fast, sweating, nervous, self-conscious, thinking that they think bad things about me. And this relationship with this fear of people just carried out with everyone. Even an old person, even an old lady getting into the block. I remember another situation I'm going to tell you about that hurt my feelings, because there's a woman that lived next to my nan. And she was a lovely woman. I think she'd been through a lot in her life. She was an actress, and she was one of the nicest women you'd ever meet. She was such a nice person. But I remember, because of my social anxiety, when I would cross the road, and a few times she'd seen me do it. And she said to my mum one day, "What's wrong with Jonathan? Doesn't he like me? Doesn't he want to speak to me?" Because the friend of the family, my mum said, "Oh, I just think he's a bit shy." It's so hurtful, and I hated that. My mum had to always account for me. And it's not my mum's fault, that's what mums do. I love my mum. But it was just that thing of feeling disabled, disempowered, different to everyone, not good enough. It's just a horrible feeling. And again, all my depressions, all of my addictive personalities, it was all attached to that childhood trauma which formed this social phobia. And I just can't, if you've got this, probably I can't tell you how frightened I used to be. Even on the train, going on the train, I'd have to I was panicking. And for me, I think the most scariest thing I can have was making eye contact with people and speaking. I remember when I used to go and do these marketing things, you'd go around London and you trial certain products, you'd get paid. And luckily, I forced myself to do it because I had to make a living, I had to make the money. I was struggling with money at the time. And you'd be a volunteer and they'd give you about £50 for a couple of hours, but they'd go around, there'd be 10 of you. And when it came to me, I just had to speak so quick to get my turn over and done with, because I was so embarrassed about public speaking, and that terrified me. So every form of speaking to human beings was so difficult for me. And the loneliness that I used to experience, and I'm really, it's hard to say this, but at the time I really had a lot of hate towards people because I thought they hated me. And it's like, you don't want to hate them. You don't hate them, but you do hate them. And you're back and forward. And of course you feel so guilty because you hate another human being, or you hate people. And you don't know why you hate, because you don't even know the person, you've never met them. But of course you're projecting how you feel about yourself. And for many years I convinced myself that I had quite a high opinion of myself. That's probably quite narcissistic, egotistical, but I didn't have a high opinion of myself. I completely hated myself, and all my behaviours and where I was in my life for many years represented that. And it was just getting more difficult as I got older, and it started from as early as I can remember, about 10, and in my 20s it just got really strong. And if you've been following me for a while, I'd done quite well at getting rid of it or hiding it more when I got really good at going out and meeting women, a thing called day game, meeting women from the street. But I had a relapse a couple of years ago, and I just had a breakdown, and it all catched up with me, and I had to change my identity and finally become my true self of getting counselling and help. And this is what I'm doing for people now. I'm a 6 weeks program. I'm teaching people the same or very similar process that I use, because I tried everything else, and things like getting better with women helped, but it didn't fully take it away. This was this really was a monster that was bullying me all my life, and even when I sort of got the better of it, it was still there, and I'm still a natural introvert. I'm still naturally introverted. I'm still very into myself, unless I'm teaching people, which I love, unless I'm doing what I love. But it's still not natural for me, and I know that sounds hard to believe if you've watched my videos, it's still not natural for me to just go up to strangers and strike conversations. It's not, I still have to get past a few voices in my head, but I'm in a great place, and that's why now all I want to do is help other people with it. And I'm so passionate about helping people with social anxiety. And I say this off my own accord, I quit being a dating coach and teaching men how to meet women, which I really enjoyed that at the time. I really loved doing it and I loved the title, but I just had to follow my heart and be really true to what I really wanted to do. And even though that was partly helping people with anxieties, it wasn't really getting to the full problem. Because there was still a certain amount of hiding that you could do with learning techniques. And if you just focused on one sex, it didn't fully get rid of it. Because as I said, my initial fear started with men, and then it projected onto women, then it was with everyone. And like I said, it hasn't been easy to admit it. I even spoke to my mum not long ago and opened up to her, told her everything, most of it. Told my dad as well, confronted my dad about the way he treated me, how hurt I was, how angry I was, but how I've forgiven him now, which I have. That really helped me to clean things up in the past. My mum was shocked, she couldn't believe it. But to some extent, I think she knew it unconsciously, but it's quite hard for a mum, I think, to accept that her son has got lots of issues around fears and with people and distrust, because I suppose maybe my mum, I don't know, maybe she feels partly to blame for it. It's not my mum's fault, but it was difficult because obviously you love your family, you love your friends, but there's a part of you that's always holding back because you don't trust people, because you've been hurt when you're younger and your psychology has been damaged, and you can't just fix that with a needle thread and a plaster. That has to be healed over time. That's why I work with people long term, and I really wish that there was a quick way to overcome social anxiety, because obviously I would make a product that could take it away in one day. That's why I go to great lengths to put out as many videos as I can, because it is a process. And that's why I changed my teaching format, where years ago I did lots of single sessions, and I'll still, if people want to do a single session with me, I'll do that, because they want to get an introduction to see if they get along with me and if my teaching is right. But the teaching I do now is really for people that are serious about overcoming their social anxiety and building their social confidence. And I've talked about integrity in my other videos, which aligns with the anxiety, getting your self-esteem up, better living. That's why I work with people for minimum 6 weeks. You've got 6 weeks to make a real difference in people's lives. And of course, after the program, you have to keep the practice up. But yeah, I really wanted to make this video to share my story. I share it a lot, and I'm going to keep sharing it because I feel that I keep getting more bits of stuff. And when I feel like today, I felt emotional, I felt like I was going to cry. It was a good emotion, but I went back to the past for a second. I just felt for people, I couldn't help it. I make these videos, and the main theme of this video is face it. It's believe me, no matter how bad you feel, and it is uncomfortable initially, you are going to feel scared, but you're going to feel so much better for facing it, and you really will start getting in touch with who you are. And lots of the other fears that you may have about, I had lots of fears about being abandoned, being left, being incapable, horrible fears and horrible depressions, feeling alone. And I know this sounds strange, but even to the point where I thought, oh, God doesn't love me, and I'm not sure if there's a God. So much paranoia and fear about being left and also frustration that the only way people are going to accept me is if I stay as I am. And that really frightened me, because I used to actually think if I change, my family's still going to love me. Are they still going to want me? And that's how much paranoia social anxiety causes, because most of the fears are around abandonment. So if you think that people are going to abandon you, you're going to do everything in your power to stop them from abandoning you. This is where all the personality problems from people pleasing comes in, not fully expressing yourself and being really frightened about social confrontation. And it's so interesting, as I've said before, it was easier for me to have physical fights with people who bullied me and attacked me and tried to rob me, which happened many occasions around my area and through school. That was easier for me than it was to just sit down with someone and have a mutual disagreement, even a light disagreement. Even if someone said, well, I don't know, this happened in history at this date, this particular date, and I knew the person was wrong. I'd be so scared just to say, well, actually, that date's wrong. It was this date, you're wrong. I would be terrified to disagree with someone. And I wasn't able to do it in a calm manner. So I had no social skills. Well, I had social skills, but I was frightened of people. I was frightened to talk, and my social cues were all over the place. My emotions were up and down, and my relationships suffered at a cost. And you're probably the same as me, definitely, man or woman watching. People really like me, but I didn't like me. So even when people offered me friendship, I was very skeptical towards it. I kept changing my mind all the time, and of course it affected, I'm sure, and it's not people's fault, because lots of people didn't know that I had this condition. They probably just thought, this guy's really aggressive, he's really horrible, why is he so defensive, why is he so insecure? I'm sure obviously they must have thought that. And then, the friends I had at the time, most of them, they had lots of anxiety. So you've kind of, and I don't mean this in a condescending way or being judgmental, because I love all my friends from the past. You start attracting people that are like you because you don't feel that you don't feel good enough to meet people who are more confident in you. And that's quite insecure and that's quite silly, but that's how it is. And I understand that reason, because you don't want to feel small. Someone who's more confident in you is a threat. And this is what social anxiety does, it stops you from growing. And I knew when I was going through this that this isn't right. It can't be right for a person to feel frightened of people and to move up in life, and things like, I can never do the job I wanted. I did so many jobs that I didn't like, and I always lost my jobs because I was frightened of people. I was afraid to express myself, it would cause problems. So, of course, in the end it was hard to admit, but I realised I was the problem, therefore I was the solution. But what had happened to me wasn't my fault. And this is just my personal research, so I don't want to run the risk of, diagnosing everyone, but from strong research in my own, my own discovery and overcoming the social anxiety, and from teaching people for 4.5 years now, or strictly 2 years, social anxiety is the result of a childhood trauma, usually from a parent, or someone in your family, someone who's around you growing up. It could be a stepmother, stepdad, it could be your mum, it could be your dad, it could be brother, sister, or it could be someone at school. Mine was a combination of all these things, but mainly it's from my dad. And it's so weird that I never knew that my fear was sitting right under my nose my whole life, and I spent many years living under my dad's roof. And even when me and my dad did get on, and we got on lots of times, within the times we didn't, I was frightened of him. So realistically, I wasn't being honest with him. I was agreeing with him on everything, because I was too scared to disagree with him, and I wasn't showing my true personality. So I hid from my dad for years, and when I went and confronted him, that's one of the things I said to him, that was carrying that for years. I said, I wasn't myself around you because you frightened me. And of course, in that conversation, it was the first time for me in 30 years that I was myself in front of my dad, because he'd never seen my true self, or maybe when I was 6 or 7, but you can't really include that. I'm talking about for the rest of my teens and my adult life. It was so frustrating. And it affected, like I said before, it made me frightened to bring girlfriends home, because I was worried that they would see that I'm not comfortable with my dad. And I wasn't myself. I was, it's like in that film with Good Will Hunting, he's acting all the time because he's afraid of being abandoned, and he's hiding behind all of this rationalization, all these personalities, these multiple personalities. It makes complete sense. So he's got social anxiety, which really is really childhood trauma. But so face it, start facing it, and do it gradually. I always say to people that you're not expected to do it in one day. You don't just overcome anxiety in one conversation. This is a gradual process, but the quicker you start working on it, the quicker it will go. You'll feel so good. I can't tell you how confident I feel, and I think it's important that people see my change, so they know that, well, if Johnny can do it, and Johnny was shy, Johnny was afraid of people, look at where he is now, I can do it, and you can do it. And when people always ask me, what made you change? Depression, despair, loneliness, suicidal thoughts. That's the truth. It's not pretty, but that's the truth. That is the truth. Most people say, I had a light bulb moment, a vision from God. And I did have a vision from God and those things, but they came much after. My depression made me face it, because I was suicidal. I didn't want to live anymore. I didn't like myself. I absolutely hated myself. I hated my existence. And I hated the way my dad treated me. And I just thought, one day I've got to share this and tell someone, because I just can't live carrying this shame and this lie. And it wasn't just to, in any way, to hurt my dad, because actually I don't want to hurt my dad. I love my dad, I've forgiven him now. But it was to cleanse me of this shame and this pain and this feeling that I'm not presenting who I really am to the world, because I was keeping this secret that was a person who was frightened of people. So I hope that's inspired you. And I know it was a bit dark and depressing, but I just wanted to do this video. I think it's going to help a lot of people.